welcome to Pirate Radio. I am your host, who needs no introduction whatsoever. I guess I should tell you the internet's been running kind of slow thus far, so we'll see how this goes. Welcome. Anyone and everyone, welcome to Pirate Radio. And tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about some gun stuff, some Graham Platner's an interesting character, and the Tyler Robinson preliminary hearing in the assassination of Charlie Kirk has begun. So, without further ado, let's get the sponsor out of the way, which is Die Free Co. You can go to Die Free Co. on the World Wide Webs, and you can enter code TOXIC10. We'll save you 10% on all of their fancy, cool stuff for your ARs and whatnot. And I think they have AK stuff. Anyway, they got cool shirts, cool stickers, like this guy right here that comes with your Tiger Claw grip. Anyway, on to the show. So, for those unaware, Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing in the state of Utah has begun, and of course, it is a big deal. And there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of truth out there, and there's a whole bunch more stuff that's just kind of like I don't really know what this means, what this is going on. I'll try to dispel some of that tonight. I haven't had a whole bunch of time to follow it as closely as I might want because I do have an actual job that pays money, unlike this, which is just this doesn't pay money. Perhaps one day, but that day is not today, and tomorrow does not look promising. Anyway, anybody who's listening, watching on the Rumbles, or watching live on Rumble or on X, feel free to comment. I will respond to your comments. I probably will respond. Unless you just type something really stupid I don't understand. But anyway, I still might mention it. Anyway, if you're listening to the recording on this on Spotify, feel free to join us every 7:30 p.m. Central Daylight Time on Fridays for the live stream if you want to comment and be part of the actual recording. Yeah. Anyway, so Tyler Robinson. The preliminary hearing has begun. We're starting to see a lot more evidence. One of the things I have talked about numerous times here, whether it's here or on X or anything like that, whether it's tweets or actually talking about it, I've talked a lot about the ballistics evidence and how first and foremost, I don't believe in ballistic science, forensic ballistics, that you can tell what firearm a bullet came from just by firing said firearm and matching tool marks and rifle marks. Because, I've gotten into it before. You can go back and listen to some of those episodes, but kind of the brief, broad strokes of why I don't believe that is you're talking about random marks made on random metal on metal marks. It's hard metal on softer metal making a specific mark, but those marks are not like what we believe DNA to be, where those marks or those indicators are unique to that specific one. Basically, what that means is in order to do ballistic forensic work, you have to have a firearm, you have to know the caliber, and then you have to test that firearm against what you already know. So it's not scientific. And then it's just comparing marks under a microscope, but under some very dubious parameters, one of those being inconclusive, not being marked as a fail. Inconclusive is not counted. So you get this very inflated percentage ranking of correct, what would you say, markings, or you get this inflated percentage of correctness of this pseudoscience. So for those of you who don't understand what the hell I'm trying to say and what I'm talking about, basically when you fire a bullet out of a rifle or any firearm at this point outside of a shotgun, a rifle like you see over behind me here, or a pistol, these are technically, what you see behind me are not technically rifles. They are long guns. Rifle refers to rifling of the barrel. If you look at something like the shotgun right there, it has a smooth bore, will make basically no marks on the projectile that comes out of it, even if it's a solid slug, which would be like a solid piece of lead. Birdshot, buckshot, it's not going to make any mark until it strikes something like a target downrange. But when you talk about long guns, like directly behind me, I have some ARs. They have rifled barrels, pistols, Glocks, what have you, Berettas. They're all going to have rifled barrels. So when it's done for stabilization of the projectile, when you fire it, the rifling grabs the projectile, spins it, which creates stabilization, which makes it more accurate. The ATF believes that those marks can be then traced back to the barrel of said firearm. It's all nonsense. It's lies. But anyway, that's a long, drawn-out nerd way of saying I think one of the things that's going to happen in this case of Tyler Robinson, in his case, they're trying him for the assassination of Charlie Kirk, is that more and more people, at the very least, more and more people are going to be very dubious of ballistic forensics. And what I think could happen at the maximum that could come out of this is that ballistic forensics are rendered null and void from here on out in court cases. It's happened in Maryland. The Maryland Supreme Court has basically ruled out tool marks in a criminal case as being some sort of evidence, and they've ruled out experts in tool markings. So the tide is kind of turning on the ballistic forensics. But anyway, why all of that matters. This Tyler Robinson first week of the preliminary trial, there's been a whole lot of things that I saw that came out that were just kind of nonsensical. One of those is just, we're going to start where we kind of started before. We finally, I covered the ballistics report before, but we finally have actual rounds now. And let's see here. We are going to swap this. Let's go here. Let's do this. Share this tab instead. And we will share this. So this was posted by Ian Carroll, who is one of the prime suspects in just being retarded on this subject. I get it. Whatever. He's probably out for clicks. I don't really know his motivations. I don't really care to know Ian Carroll's motivations on it. I don't care, either way. He could just be asking honest questions. He could be a straight up grifter. Don't really care. But anyway, he posted this, which I assume he got from the still shots of the court. Anyway, this is from Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. This looks like Plaintiff's Exhibit 11, maybe. Doesn't really matter. These were confiscated out of the rifle of Tyler Robinson, alleged rifle of Tyler Robinson's, the 30-06 projectile here. This is a full 30-06 bullet. I don't understand why this wasn't a part of the original release of the ATF report that I covered a few months ago. It was just all, and it was just all wording. You can go back and listen to that, read that, whatever. But I went over it in depth. To me, this adds more questions to anything, because one of the things I complained about in that previous episode was that the ATF just mentioned that it was a Remington Springfield 30-06 bullet. Actually, I'm not sure that they actually mentioned Remington. Or yeah, it was on the head stamp of Rem 30-06. Okay, Remington makes a lot of 30-06 bullets. They didn't mention what the projectile was, what the bullet type is. So those of you who are not in the know, a cartridge is what we're looking at here. So a cartridge consists of a brass casing with a projectile of some sort, which is your actual bullet. This being a 30-06 projectile, this appears to be a core-locked bullet, or at least a soft point bullet. So if you look at this picture, hopefully it shows, well, what you're going to see is a very bright, shiny brass casing. And as we go to the right, where we see the actual, where it necks down, where we have the crimped projectile, you're going to see what looks to be more of a light copper color. And then at the very, very tip there, the pointy end of it, is a silver lead tip. So this is a soft point projectile sold under the brand. Generally, we're not 100% sure again, because the ATF doesn't even know, but presumably this is one of Remington's core-locked bullets, which is a very popular hunter's bullet, has been for decades. And what this is going to do, and like I said back numerous times in previous episodes, for all of those like the Ian Carrolls of the world who just are in disbelief that a 30-06 bullet would have just like taken off Charlie's head, would have blown his neck out, would have went straight through, would have done all of these things. As I pointed out, if it's some sort of hunting round where it is a soft point, which I said most likely it was going to be some sort of like a soft point lead projectile, it will deform very, very quickly. And as it hits any solid structure, bone, sinew, cartilage, things of that nature, any sort of barrier before it, it's going to deform, which is one of the things we saw the ATF report, that the actual fired projectile was so deformed they had no clue where it had come from. They couldn't get any sort of markings off of it. It's fake markings. They couldn't get any rifle markings. It was basically just completely destroyed in the way that a bullet gets destroyed. It wasn't vaporized. It was just so deformed. It was basically rendered destroyed and just as non-evidence as far as working backwards to trying to figure something out. And that's before Mr. Ian Carroll. We take into account the angle of the shot, which I've pointed out numerous times. If, as Tyler Robinson or whomever shot Charlie Kirk was from an elevated position and they're shooting down, okay, when you shoot downward, the bullet is going to come from above and it's going to come downward towards you. And if that hits your spine or your collarbone or anything else, especially what they're saying, I don't believe whoever said that Charlie had a spine of steel is a nonsensical thing to say. Perhaps it was just kind of a colloquialism. Maybe it was just some sort of stupid metaphor, whatever. But the fact of the matter is this, that as that angle is coming down, natural deflection is going to be downward. And you see all of these people that go out they have their YouTube channel and they're trying to get the clicks, or maybe they're just stupid. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a combination, little from column A, little from column B, but they have their YouTube channels and they want to go out, and Ian Carroll's going to repost all this nonsense of, we're just going to get these bones of these animals, these dead animals, and we're going to shoot these bones. Some of them shoot them at about 20 yards. Some of them have gone out to 150. Some of them have shot them at 200 yards. Some of them are trying to recreate the actual distance, and they shoot these like caribou bones or these cow bones or these pig bones or anything, and it just snaps the bone in half and shatters it. Well, every single one that I've seen, they're shooting it straight on, okay? You're not taking into account the angle, and you're also not taking into account the mass of the human. You know, as any doctor will tell you, we're 70% water. Well, how do they fire a bullet at the ATF out of a gun and get a projectile out? They fire it into a pool of water because water slows it down and doesn't deform it. Now, when you're talking about the angle of that shot and it comes down, yes, okay, there's not a whole lot of mass in a neck or lower neck or upper neck, middle neck, whatever. But there's a lot of liquid in there. There's a lot of tissue in there. So when the thing comes in and it comes in at an angle, it's going to start to slow down because it's expanding. It's mushrooming. That's what a soft point's going to do. That's why you want a soft point, because if you're hunting, you don't want something to just boom right through. That's not a kill shot on a deer or an elk or whatever you're hunting. What you want to happen is you want that bullet, that projectile, to come in, pierce the skin, and as it hits the soft tissue full of water and blood and other things, you want it to start to expand. You want it to turn, tumble. You don't necessarily want it to fragment because you're going to eat this thing is kind of the idea, but you want that thing to start to deform. So if it's coming in straight, you want it to start to deform and push in and create a bigger projectile that is now exerting all 3,000 feet per second of that force, that muzzle energy, coming in and devastating and creating a wound channel within that animal. And that is what creates a hole, a cavity. So you create a hole in the skin, then you create a wound channel and cavity, and that's what helps bleed out the animal quickly. The idea that you bang, shoot one, and it just drops, it does happen. But the idea that you're going to bang, shoot one, it's going to hit vitals, all of that, tear into it, and it's going to run for 30 yards and then collapse, that's usually what happens. That can happen in a human as well, especially if you hit that spine. And again, you're at an angle, and it hits the spine and deflects downward. Okay? When it deflects downward, which it probably did, it's going to encounter what? More tissue and more water, more blood, more soft tissue that's going to make it slow down after it just has expanded. So that's none of this is a surprise to me that the projectile was basically completely deformed, unrecognizable, unable to be examined any further, because to me, that's what happened. But Ian Carroll is stupid, and he can't possibly believe that. So, but the point of this is we now know what the projectile was. We now know that it was a soft point bullet, so Ian Carroll needs to shut the fuck up. Now, some of the things that are not making sense to me are there's some video that was shown that allegedly shows Tyler Robinson going to the edge of the building and firing, and you can see the shot. If you listen to Jack Posobiec, he tells you can obviously see the shot, this, that, and the other. I couldn't see shit. It was some of the worst video I've ever seen. Now, that said, it was video of a video from the courtroom. If we had the actual video where we could view it just directly here on our phone or on our actual computers, maybe it's a lot clearer. But the video that I saw is neither here nor there, as far as I'm concerned, from my point of view, from our point of view as the onlookers. So I don't have it. To me, it was just kind of pointless. There was more video as well of what allegedly is Tyler Robinson coming to the campus that day earlier in like shorts and a t-shirt, walking around, leaving, then coming back in a hoodie and jeans, and was walking with what looked like a limp, which he allegedly was walking around with the rifle in his down his pant leg. And I guess, let me show you the picture here, because allegedly you're supposed to, there we go. Producing. So allegedly, what the state is alleging is that this rifle was assembled by Tyler Robinson at the scene once he got on the roof. So it shows him kind of walking with a stiff right leg as if this thing is down his pant leg in some sort. Now, it would not have been the entire rifle. I will give you that. But what you're going to have is if he took the action, the barrel, the scope, the actual bolt action out of the stock, then the stock would have been allegedly in his backpack, even though this is somewhere in the neighborhood of a 28-inch stock. He's then going to have the action of the rifle down his pant leg and presumably up around his chest, because he was bending his knee slightly and it was not obvious that there was a barrel down past his knee. So this would have been conceivably like tied, I guess, maybe. Like he would have tied it around like his upper body or bungeed it or something, so it was kind of sucked in tight. But then again, there again is the scope factor. They're not allowing for the scope factor in this walking to the scene of the shot. I'm very dubious about this. I'm very there's another picture that I have here. This is an even worse, more egregious, I would say. Let's go full screen on this one. This is from a user on Reddit. So this would have been the original picture from the night that they found the rifle, which is claimed by, in an article written by CNN, and this is quoting Jennifer Famuina, I don't know how to say her last name, come from America, make it better. Jennifer F., a former agent with the State Bureau of Investigations, quote, the rifle was, quote, Mauser Model 98 30-06. Okay, we have a slight problem here. And And that problem is going to be this. I've shown this before, but this is an original Mauser 98K, which would have been carabiner, which would have been a shorter version of the Mauser 98. The Mauser 98 would have been a very much longer infantry rifle from 1898 with some upgrades in between. This is the 98K carabiner, a shorter rifle, infantry rifle, shorter and lighter. He would have rebarreled. Would have been rebarreled into 30-06. Now, there's some problems that I have here. There's some issues that I can get around, that I can explain away, even without full evidence. Let me go back full screen on this. For those of you listening, this is a shot of Tyler Robinson's assassin's rifle taken by the police that night that they found it in the woods behind, wherever, in the woods. This is after they removed the towel. I'm going to get into the towel in a minute. There's some noticeable differences between the profile of the rifle that they claim is a Mauser 98 versus the rifle that I have here, which is fine. If you're going to rebarrel it, you're going to rebarrel this in a 30-06. That's fine. The bolt's still going to work for that. It's still going to pick up the cartridge. No big deal there. Or you're going to rebarrel it. You're going to take this rear sight tangent off. Let me go back here to me. So this is the rear sight tangent right here. You would take this off because you're going to make a hunting rifle out of this. And as I've explained before, the reason you're going to rechamber it into 30-06 is 30-06 is a much more common cartridge here in the United States. 8mm Mauser, even today, is not a very common cartridge, and it's gotten very expensive here lately. But anyway, so you're going to see a different profile barrel. You're going to take this rear tangent side off. You're going to take the front side off because the idea is you're going to use this as a hunting rifle that's going to be scoped, because a 30-06 is, and any 30 caliber full-size cartridge, 8mm Mauser, 30-06, 7.62 by 54, that's the Russian cartridge, or 303 British, basically any World War II infantry cartridge, except Italy because they're dumb. Even the Arisaka from Japan. These are going to be like this rear sight tangent right here is marked up to 2,000 or 1,900 yards, meters, whatever. So this rifle is capable of shooting that far, and in modern times with modern scopes, you're going to put a scope on it to shoot somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 yards, up to 500 yards fairly easily. So you're going to see a different profile of the barrel. One, they're going to get rid of this wood, all of this stuff. They put it in aftermarket stock, obviously. I'm not sure what stock that is. I'm sure someone in the comments can tell me what stock that is. Everything that I saw, as far as like what Google would tell me it was, that it's a Remington 700 stock, which now we're starting to get into some weird territory. But anyway, what you're seeing there, so this original Mauser would not have been drilled and tapped for scope rings, okay? Obviously, the rifle that Tyler Robinson is alleged to have used has a scope on it, and you're going to have scope rings to put a scope on it. That's fine. That was also another modification that could have been easily made. One of the problems that we're running into here with the theory that he assembled this on the roof is that, you know, I don't necessarily see how he would have done that. But let's just assume he was able to do that. So we're going to go back to the rifle here. I guess what the state is alleging is that he was able to hide this barreled action. And what I mean by barreled action, for those who are not in the know, is basically when you remove the barrel, and so the bolt and the barrel are connected, you can remove this from the stock. You remove this from the stock, you place it in a new stock. So the theory here is that he had these separated. He was walking with what looked like a limp, but really he just had this down his pant leg. So he would have had the barrel and the action would have been removed from the stock. He had that down his pant leg to some extent, also up here on his person. So how he did that, not exactly sure. But then they're alleging that he would have had the rifle stock, not this one, but the one in the picture, would have been in his backpack, which I don't know. Curious to know if they believe that he had the scope removed and attached it once he got there, because that will change the zero of that scope and that rifle. Again, for those of you not in the know, there are some platforms out there for modern rifles where in Picatinny and other methods of attaching scopes and optics to rifles that you can get your zero back. What zero means is that scope was zeroed at, let's say, 100 yards. So you're going to fire rounds into a target, get your scope zeroed in at 100 yards. So when you put the crosshairs on a target at 100 yards, it's going to hit, boom, right there within, a few tenths of an inch, whatever. But you're going to have a zeroed rifle. What happens so often with hunting rifles and things of that nature is if you drop them, they go out of zero. So the idea that you're going to use like traditional scope rings, take those off, put them back on, and then line up a shot and your rifle is going to be zeroed where you left it, that's a tall order, and I don't believe it. So let's say that he did not remove the scope, so now he's walking around the school with not only a rifled action, but a scope up under his hoodie and t-shirt. Could he have pulled that off? I guess. Again, the video is just not good enough to actually see that kind of detail. I don't know. The thing is we're really getting into some odd territory with this kid that is... So let's. There might be some questions out there as far as, well, how hard is it to remove a barreled action from a stock? Quick answer is not very difficult. Typically, it's like one screw, maybe two screws that you take off and you put back on, and can be done with basically a flathead screwdriver, or at least like a multi-tip screwdriver that you can carry with you. No big deal there. And it's one of those, once you know how to do it, you know how to do it. It's not a very in-depth process. It's not a very long process to do that. So could Tyler Robinson know how to do that and do that quickly? Sure. Would he know enough not to move the scope? Now we're getting into some weird territory there, because I don't know his level of competency with firearms. I don't know his know-how of things. I don't know that this is even his firearm. His grandfather allegedly says it's not, but I don't know. There's just so much of an I don't know, and just so many assumptions that are there. So what do I believe? I believe that, yes, it could have been a 30-06 bullet that killed Charlie Kirk. I have no reason to not believe that. Do I believe that Tyler Robinson had the know-how to pull this off? I'm 50-50 on that. The idea that he's going to plan this whole thing, he's going to recon the day of, possibly before, but definitely recon the day of, showed up in just shorts and a t-shirt to do some recon, or at least get a look around, and then he was going to make his way, leave, come back, dressed in different clothes, hiding a rifle, and then make his way onto the roof, assemble said rifle, go to the edge and fire a shot without being seen. We're getting into the realm of possibility, but probability we're getting really, really low. I don't know. And I'm not being compelled by the state's case. And one of the reasons I'm not being compelled by the state's case is they found a towel. One of the things I want to point out here, this was kind of confusing to me. So we see the rifle, and we see the rifle in a box, right? I'm assuming the police provided said box, because that's not been made clear necessarily, but this is obviously, looks to me to be an evidence box for a long gun. If you look at the box, you go, man, that looks like that box has really never been used before. This is going to be an evidentiary box. They're going to use this to transport said rifle. Okay, I'm going to assume that. I don't know that to be 100% fact. No one has said that, but that's what we're going to assume. This rifle was found with a towel over the top of it. And the police have that towel. And a article from the New York Post has a headline which caught my attention this week. And that headline from the New York Post in regards to Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing says, DNA likely matching Tyler Robinson, his lover Lance Twiggs, found on towel wrapped around rifle near scene of Charlie Kirk shooting, according to the FBI. Now, hopefully all of you listening have the same thought that I had of DNA likely matching. Well, I'm told that DNA is the be-all, end-all of evidence. When they have DNA evidence, your goose is cooked. Okay. So let's go down into this article and let's read. This is from Amanda Baker, an FBI DNA examiner, who said 2 samples of male DNA seem to match both Robinson and Twiggs, 22, with a high degree of probability according to the results. Okay. By the way, Lance Twiggs is not being accused of any wrongdoing in this case. But a high degree of probability. So do we have the DNA results or don't we? Or are we just making shit up? Because I'm told that DNA is the be-all, end-all. So if you have DNA, can we talk about the DNA? And by the way, if you're the defense or the defendant or just someone who believes in like a fair trial and your day in court and discovery, why do we not have a DNA result when we're in the preliminary hearing? Why are we even going to court? As far as I'm concerned, if I'm the defense, well, now you can't use DNA evidence because I don't even have all the evidence. So you've brought this to court, you've brought this to trial, and you don't have the evidence either? Well, that means me as the defense, and I cannot mount a credible defense if we don't have all of the information. So we don't have all the information, so let's throw this shit out. And then there's people saying, well, it can take like months or even up to a year. And by a Google search, that is accurate. That can take months, even a year, because of some sort of backlog within the state to get the results of DNA. Well, it sounds like a problem for the fucking state, not a problem for the fucking defendant. Okay? State, get your shit together. If you can't get your shit together within a fucking year or 8 months, whatever it's been, that's a you problem, not a defendant problem. I don't know why we allow all this leeway to the state. Okay, so if you believe 100% that Tyler Robinson did it, I understand why you want to argue with me right now and say, well, we have to be able to prove this. Okay, well, let's flip it on its head where it's very, very suspect. And you're like, man, I don't know. And the only thing holding this thing together is the DNA, but you don't even have the DNA evidence. And it's like, I didn't do this, but you're saying I did. And you're saying you have DNA, but you've not been able to produce a positive DNA sample or result. But we're going to go to trial or at least a preliminary hearing, at which point you're probably going to try to offer me some sort of like plea agreement or whatever. We don't have all the evidence. Why are we here? You know, burden of proof is upon the state. Well, the state's fucking this up royally. So that is, I'm factoring that into so much of my skepticism about this is that it seems like you're rushing this instead of taking your time and doing it right. Or at least, you know, pushing where you need to push. It's kind of a high-profile case. Feels like you could maybe farm this out to the FBI, who has, like, billions of dollars worth of resources. But no, you didn't do that. You're relying on the state of Utah, and it's, like, 8 people who fucking work there to do this? I don't know. But it seems a little sus, if I'm using the word of the kids. What the fuck happened here? Anyway, so we're going to stop streaming that one. So that's where we're at with the Tyler Robinson stuff so far. You know, I saw another one. Let me pull this up. So there was another post that I saw, like a conspiratorial post. Oh, let's do this. I have to show this one. Okay. So this is another thing that's a little odd to me. Yeah, let's share that tab. And we'll add it to the stage. And here we go. So I'll go full screen on this. So this is from Andrew Colvett. I don't know who the hell Andrew Colvett is, but His tweet says, here are images of the text messages exchanged between Tyler Robinson and Lance Twiggs, which includes his confession and attempt to retrieve his rifle. Now, this is a picture from the courtroom. I just want you to look at this, and the cops are basically taking a picture of Tyler's, or not Tyler's, of Lance Triggs' phone of his alleged text messages with Tyler Robinson. And they're just taking a picture of his phone screen. It's not getting the actual text. It's just literally taking pictures. This is evidence in the year of our Lord 2026. Like, could it at least screenshot it and send them to you, and then you could print these off? But these are out of focus. These are not good pictures whatsoever of an alleged, like, why do we not have the phone data? Why do we not have the actual printed text messages from the service provider? Instead, we have some detective taking a picture of a phone with this phone. What the fuck is this? I'm sorry, but this does not pass like the smell test with me. This does not meet the muster of the state of Utah or the FBI or any of these agencies. This is Mickey Mouse shit. I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know why this is even like a thing. Like this, it's just Mickey Mouse shit. Like, what? I really don't understand it. But I digress. Here's another thing that I want to dispel. So I've seen things that I agree with. I've seen things that I don't agree with. I've just seen some bullshit. So this is a bullshit one. So this is a video posted by someone named Ricky Zaccaglini, whatever, man. Some Italian shit. So this is a video, and I'll play it in a second, but the caption of the tweet is, TPUSA cameraman doesn't even flinch and then casually turns around to aim the camera where Charlie's body would be carried away to the vehicle. Okay, this is for clicks only. I'm going to go ahead. No, Charlie doesn't. You don't see anyone get shot in this, but I'm going to play the video, and the cameraman he's talking about is directly behind the little TPUSA tent. Okay, it's this guy right here. Sorry if you're listening and you can't see this, but anyway, so let's play this, and we'll watch this guy right here, basically in the middle of your screen, right behind the tent. Well, he's hear the shot. He turns and looks to where they're going to take Charlie out. Okay. The idea of this is that he knew something. Well, Ricky Zaccaglino, whatever your name is, you're an idiot. And I guess you got my click or whatever. But if you follow this Ricky retard guy, stop right now because this is retarded. What this guy is responding to is, first and foremost, I don't know that he doesn't have headphones in or like, the earbuds, AirPods, whatever we're going to call them today. But the other part is that he's not facing anything. He hears a loud noise, which most common people, when they hear a gunshot, don't know it's a gunshot. When they hear a gunshot, they go, what was that? Was that a firework? Because you're not expecting it. This is one of those Ricky's one of those stupid people that argues from conclusion as if he's right. But watch what this guy does. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Shot goes, and the guy to his left is already looking behind him, and he starts to kind of back that way. And so he's looking at the guy who turns around was looking to the guy to his left. And so he just turns and looks that way. And as any good cameraman does, he turns and looks that way with his camera. And you can see him. That's why old Ricky shuts the video off when he does, because he's looking very, very curiously in that direction of like, what's going on? So Ricky's a retard. Everybody unfollow Ricky. Maybe block Ricky. I might do that too. Don't hold his Italianness against him. He knows no better. Anyway, so that's some of the nonsense revolving around the Tyler Robinson case. You get idiots like that, Guido fools like that, who are trying to make a name for themselves because they're failures in fucking real life. Anyway, his whole thing is he's Italian. Like, well, then go back to fucking Italy, pasta man. Leave me the fuck alone. I don't give a fuck about your shit ass country. Okay? I don't give a fuck about Germany, Italy, any of them. If you love Italy, go fucking live there, pasta sauce. Anyhow, I digress. So that's all I've got for Tyler Robinson today. But on to Graham Platner, who's a character. So Graham Platner dropped out of the main Senate race because he got accused of rape. And apparently it's somewhat credible, even though he denies the allegations and says that they're false, but they're so false that he had to drop out of the race. Fair enough. This is just another in the series of Graham Platner oopsies. He got a Totenkopf tattoo on, I believe it's his left pectoral, around there. If you're not familiar with what a Totenkopf is, feel free to Google it. Might want to use a VPN on that one. But a Totenkopf is basically what was the skull that the SS had, that SS, the Waffen SS of the Nazi regime, and he decided to get that as a tattoo and then claimed he didn't know what it was. It's just like a lark. Oh, look cool. So I got the skull tattoo where no one can see it unless I took my shirt off, which he decided to do numerous times. There's video of it. So that guy's a fucking Nazi, or at least Nazi apologist. He's a fan, at least. So what finally got the old Nazi man out was a woman from Maine. Maine resident named Jenny Rassicot, whatever. She detailed the interview over a couple of weeks. In an interview with Politico, she detailed the encounter over a couple of weeks. And, quote her, I remember him being Graham Platner, I remember him grabbing my pelvis and being really forceful of me, she said. And then she continues and says, I remember the specific moment where I thought to myself, like, this is no longer my choice. Okay. Seems odd. Happened allegedly 5 years ago. She didn't report it because she didn't want to be known as a rape victim. Okay. Even though you are one, you didn't want to be known as it. Okay. I thought, all women are heroes, and if it saves one person from being raped, then you should do it. Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, here's an interesting tidbit from the Political article. Rassicot, whatever her name is, said she was torn over coming forward in part because she agrees with Platner politically. Quote, one of the reasons I didn't come forward sooner was the huge moral conflict that I had between supporting his politics but not supporting him as a person, she said. She continues, I just want the truth out there. I just want people to have a whole scope of who he is as a person. So long as he believes in the leftist agenda, the victim of his rape is going along with the plan. That sounds like mental illness to me, and someone allows this woman to vote, which I do not understand whatsoever. So basically, up until the 11th hour of this race, she was just going to let old Rapey continue his thing because she agrees with him politically. Well, Jenny, what if one of his platforms is more rapes? Do you now not believe him politically? Because this is at least the second one he's been accused of, sexual assault / rape. So it seems like a personal policy with old Grammy there. Mind you, one of the previous people, ex-girlfriend speaking about Graham Platner was a woman who lived with him and said that if anyone ever were to break in their house, that he was, quote, going to, quote, rape them, but not in a sexual way, which I can understand talking shit as a guy. And, he seems to be playing fast and loose with the word rape. Whatever. Not necessarily an indictment of your character, in the right company, locker room talk. It is what it is. But it just seems like he's, really into rapey. He's kind of a goofball. He's kind of a dumbass. He seems like a bit of a lush, as they would say. Uh, I don't know. So he's out, and it looked like he had a really good chance to win. Way to go, Susan Collins, who, by the way, has to have like dementia, early onset dementia, or Parkinson's or something, because she's always a little shaky when she talks about things. You know, the state of politics is something terrible. Here's the other thing about this is that Graham Platner aside, the allegations just being made at the 11th hour, enough to get him out. Well, everyone on the right is super excited about it because they hold this like moral ground where you can just speak truth to these people on the left. And this guy was a Nazi with a Nazi tattoo, or at least Nazi sympathizer. And everyone on the left would just be like, oh, we can't have that. There's nothing above the ideology when you're talking about communists, and that's what you have on the left. It's just a bunch of goddamn commies. And also, you're playing the same game, everyone on the right, of, you know, if this were your guy, let's think back to Brett Kavanaugh, which I don't think did any of the things he was accused of doing. But when you're going to use this one way, it's going to go the other way. So your next candidate, when they have a little bit of like griminess in their past, this is going to come up, and your guys are going to jump on it faster than Hunter Biden can jump on a fucking line of blow, because you're just playing the left-right game. You're playing the either-than game, the other-or, the 1-0, the on-off game. Here's the thing. Susan Collins, the same people who want Susan Collins to win, or just at least want the Democrat to lose, i.e. the Graham Platners of the world, you can get on your moral high horse, but the thing is that you're the same people that threw Thomas Massie under the bus, who votes with Trump more than Susan Collins ever has. Susan Collins is definitely a rhino, Republican in name only. Her and that Lisa Murkowski bitch up in Alaska are like peas in a pod, voting against all of the things. They voted against the SAVE Act. They voted against any number of things. They voted against all kinds of things. And they voted for all kinds of horrible things. Both of them are pro-amnesty. Both of them are not against the closed border. Both of them are overseeing things in this country, spending bills, all of that are just putting us in the poorhouse. I've heard neither of them speak up against the Iran war. And you guys are just cool with it because, like, well, we're on the same team, unless you're Thomas Massie. But whatever, Thomas Massie has like some sort of like, morals, ethics, a spine, and you couldn't hate him more for it. But you love Lisa Murkowski and you love Susan Collins because at least they're not the other guy or gal or whatever. See what it gets you? When you just play that, well, it's not the other guy thing. Anyway, I'm tired of talking about Graham Platner. You fucking idiot. So, there was a 35-year... So, some illegal immigrant got iced by ICE. He had been here for 35 years, had never gotten a citizenship, apparently owned a house, apparently had kids, never found the time in 35 years to go get a citizenship. I'll bet you there's a reason he couldn't get a citizenship. Does that mean he deserved to die at the hands of ICE? No, but allegedly tried to ram with their car. Don't really know much about the story, but I can guarantee you this. The motherfucker didn't speak English after all these years. Almost guarantee it. Anyway, let's get into some gun stuff. So, Palmetto State Armory is back with ammunition. Well, they will be back with ammunition. They're rebranding it. They're not going to call it AAC ammo anymore because AAC is going to stand alone as suppressors. And so they're going to kind of clean up the line. So they're going to have 3 lines of ammunition that they're going to switch to. Ammunition names. They're going to have more than 3 calibers. So the lines are going to be, number 1 is going to be called the Guardsman. This is going to be like your training ammunition. But what they're promising is tons of readily available data from the PSA websites. You're going to know coefficients, drag coefficients. You're going to know feet per second. You're going to know all of the details of this ammunition before you ever buy it. It's not just going to be printed on the box. It's going to be posted on the website. You're going to know it for each and every caliber. So Guardsman, you're going to know that. That's going to be your training ammunition, probably full metal jacket stuff, a lot of 115 grain 9 mils. They haven't really said exactly what they're going to be, loading, but you can assume 115 grain 9 mil. You can assume 55 grain 5.56 and 223. things like that. Going to be your standard training ammunition. One of the things they did mention in the release is that trying to get their in-house powder production is online has been kind of a taxing effort. And I get it. They will get it there. They're just not there yet. But line number 2 is what they call the Saber. This is going to be your match grade ammunition, legitimate ammo for like precision rifle shooting and any number of things. And you're going to have this in probably going to be your like 77 grain match ammunition. This is going to be your good stuff. This is going to be your badass. This is going to be your high line stuff. Multiple calibers again. They didn't really mention any like defensive ammunition, but I would assume that you're going to have some sort of like defensive ammunition within that. They didn't really talk about it though in their 4-minute release on YouTube. So I guess we'll wait and see. I'm just glad to have PSA back in the ammo. But also, number 3 is what they're going to call the mixtape, and this is going to be their suppressed line, 300 blackout, 9mm, all of that stuff. So they're going to have a dedicated suppressed line. So you can search, like, ideally you would search, like, PSA ammo mixtape, and that's going to have all of your suppressed stuff. It could get a little confusing when you're talking about, like, 300 blackout, 8.6 blackout, assuming they do an 8.6 blackout, I don't really know. But, like, what you're going to have is... So you have some overlap between like the mixtape and like Saber and Guardsman, because you'll have like, which would be kind of nice, because when I want to look for like anybody who looks for like 300 blackout, you go to a website and you know look at 300 blackout, and then you basically have to just decipher a lot of times between what's subs and what's not, and what's the full power, which you get there. But it'd be nice. Assuming, and I'm really assuming this here, but I think it's a safe assumption that, you know, PSA's website's pretty decent, but if you look up the mixtape line, it's all going to be suppressed stuff, so you're all going to have, like, suppressed 300 blackout in, like, 200 grain, or 195, 200, 205s, you know, 220s, whatever it is. I don't know that they're going to load those, but it's nice just to have a dedicated, like, especially with, like, 9mm, where you could, you know, there's tons of 9mm, or even, like, 7.62 by 39 suppressed applications or subsonic applications, or 45, any number of things where you can look it up and know instantly this is the suppressed line, this is the mixtape, so you don't have to really decipher too much. You can just hit it real quick and hit it easily. But yeah, a little disappointed today because I have a rifle waiting for me at my FFL, and I couldn't get out of work early enough today to get by there and get it, so I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow. That is going to be my PSA Saber AK. I'm really excited about it. I have 360 rounds of ammunition sitting about 4 or 5 feet away from me. I have 2 spare mags that hopefully fit. That's the weird thing about AKs, is you got to kind of, you know, figure that out. But anyway, I... kind of disappointed. But here's the thing. I'm going to go tomorrow and pick up my rifle, and I'm going to buy a pistol. And I'm not sure what pistol I'm going to buy, but I might buy, there's no telling what I might buy, because it's at a pawn shop. And they have, you know, used stuff and new stuff in this pawn shop. And I haven't been there in a while. And I'm excited about it. I'm not going to lie. I can't wait to get that AK at the very least, because that thing is sweet. Anyway, I'm going to end this show on a very different note. Let me pull up my Twitters here. Go back. So, one of my mutuals, is he a mutual? Not a mutual. Son of a bitch. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Guy that I follow anyway is a guy named Wardall. So he made a post a couple days ago. What was it? Doesn't really matter. July 8th. Anyway, so he made this post. And this isn't a previous life of mine specialty. So, and this might help some people. So listen up, motherfuckers. Anyway, so Wardall posted, have 700 credit score. Try to get secured line of credit to consolidate debt and not pay 22% interest. Smart. After credit check, bank wants me to pay off a little credit card debt to have better debt to income ratio. Fair enough. To which Wardall says, no problem. Pay off some credit card debt. Goes back. Bank says, good, but you've just been penalized for simply looking at your credit score, so now we'll have to wait for that to come back up. He asks, how will I know when it comes back up? We'll have to look at that number again next month. He asks again, logical question, won't that drop my score again? Then he puts lapse in Schrodinger's credit score. Be honest, I don't know what that last part means. But here's the thing. Here's what my advice to Wardall was. First and foremost, get a new bank, period, because they should be able to look at your credit score before and go, oh, that's what it was. And he paid off this credit card debt. We can see that on this new bureau. Let's go off this old bureau because we're good guys and we want this guy to borrow money from us so we can charge him interest so we can make money off of it. But the thing you have to know about banks, and especially local banks, is they're retarded. They're just a bunch of data entry clerks going off of a matrix that was provided to them by someone. They're not even sure their name or their title, and they're all idiots. So my advice to Wardall and to anyone listening is that if you run into a situation like this, you need to go bureau shop. So there are 3 credit bureaus, which most of you are aware of: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So if I'm Wardall, and what I told him, figure out what bureau your bank uses. So let's say they use Equifax. Great. Find another bank nearby that uses anything but Equifax, because the odds are is that your TransUnion and your Experian are going to be somewhat similar, if not dead on accurately similar, like 100% similar. They're going to vary a little bit no matter what, but they should be somewhat similar to your Equifax. And so what you can do is, now you know that your debt to income ratio is good, and you can go to this other bank and say, hey, can I consolidate some debt, get a secure line of credit to consolidate this debt so I don't pay 22% interest. Instead, I'll pay you 8% interest on this money of this total. And they'll go, okay, great, let's pull your credit. And they pull your credit and go, hey, your debt to income looks great. And your score is like high enough. It's over 700. And that's what we want. Yay. Okay, great. And so now you have a new bank with the same loan that you wanted, all of the advice of that other stupid bank. So there's that. That's what you should do if you run in this situation. How do I know this? Because working in the car business for numerous years, I was in the finance office, then on the sales desk. And you go to the finance office, you know how to run a sales desk, you know how to look at credit bureaus, and you know how to look at credit scores, and you know how to look at all the different things and know where to send something, right? Okay, that was my job for a whole lot of years. And that job taught me a lot about credit bureau surfing. Now, you can do this with, typically, it sounds to me like he went to a credit union. I don't know that for fact, but that's how credit unions operate. They're very structured, and this is how they do things. And if it falls outside of this little thing, there's the, I don't know what to do. And they just tell you no because, again, they're stupid. They don't know what to do, and they're just data entry people. So in the car business, you're able to kind of bureau shop. So if I pull something that says I pull an Equifax as this customer has a 680, but I pull an Experian, this customer has a 705. Well, that 680 to 705 is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1.5%, 2% interest rate difference. And so what I can do is, a lot of credit unions used to anyway, and some of them were trying to get away from it for whatever reason, will let you bureau shop. So even though Credit Union A takes Equifax that shows a 680, I can just say, hey, Credit Union A, I have an Experian that shows a 705. Let me send it to you. And they say, cool, send it to me. And I send it to them. They go, great, I have 705. We're going to tier you up to the next tier. So you're going to be a tier 3 instead of a tier 4, or tier 2 instead of a tier 3. So you get a better interest rate and you get more carry. That's the thing. It was like, well, why would you do that? And are they shopping the interest rate? Usually most people are not shopping the interest rate. You'll be able to sell them the interest rate. But here's the thing. I'm able to carry more money on a tier 2 than on a tier 3, which means that I can cover up more negative equity, assuming you have it, on a tier 2 than a tier 3, and I can also sell you more back-end product on a tier 2 than a tier 3, so you can get a better warranty that costs more money, and you get all the gap, and you get all the things and all the shit that everyone hates, even though extended warranties are very good ones. Most of them are very good now. Cover your ass. You can negotiate with those things anyway. So that is my long, drawn-out story of if you're trying to do some financial finagling, things like that. The other thing that you can do in this scenario is, if you have like a paid off vehicle, or you're just looking to go purchase a vehicle outright, the automobile industry is hurting right now to sell new cars. So what you can do is you can go and you can find a vehicle. Let's say you want to buy a Ford F-150 and there's $4,500 of rebate in your area. You can go and you can find the F-150 and you wanted to buy a truck anyway. You're buying a brand new F-150. costs 50 grand. There's $4,500 worth of rebates. You're going to finance somewhere in the neighborhood of 45,500. What you can do is you say, hey, can you go ahead and just write me a loan for 50,000 and give me a check for $4,500 back? And then you can take that $4,500 and pay off debt and do whatever. Don't recommend doing that, but it is something that you can do if you have the credit to do it, especially if you can borrow money at 0%, 1.9, 3, whatever it is, 1.9% interest, 0% interest, 72 months, 60 months, whatever it is. If you can borrow money at that. So you're like, well, why would I get extra money in a depreciating asset? Well, it's 0% interest, so you're not paying money on that, and you go pay off your debt. And then once you free up that money, theoretically, you can push that money back and pay off the vehicle sooner, or at least get yourself, save up a down payment, be in a better spot, whatever. Anyway, that's my advice. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be the show for tonight. We're a little bit over an hour. Yay, us. Anyway, do all the things, like, subscribe, whatever. Tell your friends. Come hang out next time and like and comment and all that. Had no comments this time. No worries. Still love everybody who's watching. But go to Die Free Co. Enter code Toxic10. Save yourself 10% on all their wares and all their cool stuff. But until next time, everybody, stay safe. Do the things. It's hot as fuck outside, so drink lots of water. And try not to die out there. Until next time, peace out, everyone.